Good morning. And welcome to this Sunday service of the Eno River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We're located in Durham, North Carolina, on the ancestral lands of the Eno, Sisipaha, Shakori, Saponi, and Lumbee people. I'm Reverend Stacy Grove, serving as consulting pastoral care minister, and whoever you are, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, whatever your race, whatever your gender, whomever you love, we are glad you've joined us here today. Welcome. And if you are new to this community, and especially if there's anyone here for the first time, if you'd please rise in body and spirit so we can greet you. If you just do that. Welcome. It's wonderful to have you with us. And if you're at home watching, if you would put your name in the chat box if you're new to ERUF, so that we can give you a warm welcome as well. There's information in the chat box where you can find out more about us or go to our website. There's a lot happening here this summer. First of all, we're here early, 45 minutes early, so thank you to those who have made it with that change. And beginning next week, we will start our Spiritual Odyssey season at 9 a.m. And the children, we are so glad to have little ones with us today. They'll be in worship with us and for about the first 15 minutes or so, and then they'll go to their classrooms. For those who are considering membership or want to learn a little bit more about who we are and what happens here, we have an Inquirer's classes that begin each Sunday now at 11:15, and other adult programming will begin at 11:30. So this morning we welcome our guest minister, Reverend Lisa Garcia-Sampson, who will lead our service. And she serves as the executive director of UU Justice in North Carolina. Our worship associate today is Todd Resly. Music is presented by Nellie Galindo, our cantor, and of course, Kate on piano. And we'll also hear from Eric Hodges about this summer's beloved community common read. Our tech people today are Sean Trimble and Michelle Sager, and on sound we have Scott Gaskins. So let us take a moment now just to settle in, to center ourselves, and after the bell we will continue with a prelude. But let us now just take a couple of breaths, deep breaths, breathing in the energy of being together in this beloved community today, and breathing out any concerns or feelings that may keep us from being fully present to this worship experience. And another breath in and out. As we settle in to this place at this time and begin our worship together.
Our opening words this morning come from Hope Johnson. We are one, a diverse group of proudly kindred spirits here not by coincidence, but because we choose to journey together.
We are active and proactive. We care deeply. We live our love as best we can.
We are one, working, eating, laughing, playing, singing, storytelling, sharing, rejoicing, getting to know each other, taking risks, opening up, questioning, seeking, searching, trying to understand, struggling, making mistakes.
Paying attention, asking questions, listening, living our answers, learning to love our neighbors, learning to love ourselves.
Apologizing and forgiving with humility, being forgiven through grace.
Creating the beloved community together. We are one.
And now we light our chalice. We hallow this time together to kindle the lamp of our heritage, and in celebration of the beloved community we are creating. And now please rise and body your spirit for our opening hymn, number 347, Gather the Spirit.
Again, gather in spirit of heart and mind, seeds for the sowing are laid in store, nurture in love and conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Again, gather the Spirit, growing in all, drawn by the moon and fed by the sun, winter to spring and summer to fall, chorus of life resounding as one. I invite you now to turn and greet your neighbor.
All right. I'm going to keep it on for this. Yeah, all right. Now I am excited to welcome our children and youth down to the front, and anyone that is young at heart, of course, for our story of all ages. Come on down. Come on down. You want to have a seat? How y'all doing today? Feeling good? Hi, Oliver. You ready to hear a story? All right. Well, today's story, the original author of this story is unknown, and this is a retelling of the story that I've adapted from Erie Chapman. You guys ready? Yeah. All right, Oliver. So there once were two villages on the banks of a powerful body of water. There was a village upstream and there was a village downstream. And one day, the folks from the village downstream were hanging out down by the water when they saw this man being swept down the waterway calling out for help. But luckily, they were really, really good swimmers and they jumped in and they saved the man. But the next week, they were sitting by the water again, and then 3 more people came coming down the waterway calling out for help, and again they had to jump in and save them. It kept happening for weeks and months and years until it got to a point where people couldn't even remember a time when this didn't happen. So one day, a little girl about your age was sitting down by the water, and she looked over and saw a man who was sitting on the rock. He had just been pulled out of the water and he was drying off. And the little girl decided to go over to him and ask him something that no one had ever asked somebody from the upstream village before. Do you know what she asked them? She said, "Excuse me, sir, why do you guys keep falling in the river?" And the guy was like, "Oh, well, you see, our village is built on the side of this cliff, and whenever there's a big rainstorm, there's a mudslide, and we get swept into the water." And the girl is like, "Okay, well then why don't you build a fence?" And the guy's like, yeah, we've tried that, but we're such a small village, and by the time that we start working on it, we can never finish it before another rainstorm comes and washes it away. That's why we're so lucky to have your village, because you guys are such good swimmers, and you always come and help save us. We're really bad swimmers. Hiking, that's our thing. We're really good hikers. And on that note, he got up and he began the long trek back up to the upstream village. The wheels started to turn in this young girl's brain, and suddenly she jumped up and she ran home and she said, Dad, they're falling in the river because of the rain, and if we help them build a fence, we wouldn't have to save them anymore. And the dad said, "Oh, sweetheart, you're too young to understand, but it's always been this way. And we're good swimmers, so we always save them, but we're terrible hikers. We could never make it all the way up there to help them build a fence." Do you think the girl was satisfied with that answer, Oliver? No, she was not satisfied with that answer. The wheels started turning again. And again, she jumped up and she ran out the door and she went to talk to every single kid in the village. The next morning, before the sun came up, every kid in the village left their homes and they all left a note on their kitchen table that said, "Going upstream." When the parents woke up, concerned for the safety of their kids, they knew they had no choice but to follow. They packed up their bags, and they began trekking, and they hiked and hiked and hiked further than they ever thought they could. and hours later, they finally arrived at the outskirts of the upstream village. And as they walked into town, they saw all of their kids standing there shoulder to shoulder with the people from the upstream village. And the little girl came out, she ran and gave her dad a big hug, and she said, "We're so glad that you followed us. Now grab a hammer. We've got a fence to build." And now our children can go to their classrooms for religious education. Please join us in singing "Go Now in Peace."
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Vayan en paz, puede el amor rodearlo siempre, por doquier que vayan.
Good morning, everyone. I bring you warm greetings on behalf of myself, Steve Hall, and the Ministerial Coordinating Committee. We want to talk a bit about the summer reading program that we've helped to pull together for you all this summer. We are, as a congregation, looking at opportunities to read a book together this summer. The book is called Centering: Navigating Race, Authenticity, and Power in Ministry. This book describes the challenges and experiences of 18 individual BIPOC UU ministers, Black, Indigenous, people of color. Each experience is unique in its own way, though there are many overlapping themes and connections to be made. What this book is not, nor is it intended to be, is a depiction of what Reverend Brett's challenges and experiences with us have been or necessarily will be. Instead, it is a lens into what is essentially a relationship between us individually and collectively and our minister, placing her at the center. We invite you to participate because you recognize that this relationship is impacted by our own assumptions, expectations, unconscious biases, and the larger white cultural norms that we all operate within. Finally, each of us comes to this work from our own place in our personal journey to wholeness. You're encouraged to experience this with one another with curiosity and respect. It's the perfect place at this moment in time. As of this morning, 65 of you have signed up to participate in this reading. For those of you that may have been thinking about it or maybe hearing about this for the first time, if you go to EREF's website and look in the calendar section of the EREF website, you will see a place there that talks about this reading and provides some background and an opportunity for you to register. At this time, we have 3 different opportunities to gather together. We'll be looking at Wednesdays from 10:30 in the morning until 12, for those of you that have time during the day, from 7 to 8:30 at night on Wednesdays, and then on Sundays from 11:15 until 12:45. There are opportunities for both in-person gathering and Zoom, and you can make your preferences known for that. We have facilitators that will help to guide you through this reading and reflection, and they will also be participants in the discussion groups as well. So again, thank you so much. We think this is a fantastic opportunity for us. We'll be starting on the 22nd of June, which is 2 weeks from this coming Wednesday. This reading series will take place over 10 weeks during the summer, so we'll be wrapping up mid-August. And we think it's a great opportunity to do some reflection while Reverend Brett is away on her sabbatical, so that when she comes back to us in August, We can have had some time to learn about the experiences of other UU ministers of color and think about ways that we might help pave a smooth path for Reverend Brett upon her return. Thank you very much.
A little help from a friend. Voila. Thank you, Eric. Good morning. Good morning. All right, and good morning to those of you online as well. So this is a reading from Stacey Abrams at the 2021 Ware Lecture at the Unitarian Universalist General Assembly. We spend so much of our time in a defensive crouch that we get used to the cramps and we get used to the confines of battling. And when you're only against something that might energize you for a moment because the anger surges, the despair surges, but it's ephemeral, it's gone in an instant. But when you have something that you're for, when you're trying to construct something new, then you've got this constant energy source, a supply of imagination, and energizing and new people to bring on board. When you're in the process of construction, when you're working towards something, your energy feels different. Your complacency dissipates. And it's replaced by this constant buzz of how do I keep it going? And what's even more important is that people want to be part of making something new. They rarely want to be part of just the pure raw energy of destruction. It is an abysmal space to inhabit when you are constantly in battle against, because the darker the enemy, the darker your soul gets trying to fight it. But there is the light in creation. There is light in the act of being for something. There is light in having a path ahead of you, as opposed to constantly trying to destroy what's behind you.
Please join me for a time of prayer. This adapted from Ted Loder. Wondrous worker of wonders, I praise you, not alone for what has been or for what is, but for what is yet to be. For you are gracious beyond all telling of it. I praise you that out of the turbulence of our lives, a new paradigm is emerging. Our beloved community is being shaped even now out of the slivers of loving, our bits of trusting, our sprigs of hoping, our toodles of laughing, our trickles of crying, our smidgens of worshiping. That out of our songs and struggles, out of our griefs and triumphs, we are gathered up and comforted. For you are gracious beyond all telling of it. I praise you that you turn me loose and turn us loose to go with you to the edge of now and maybe. to welcome the new, to see myriad possibilities, to accept our limits, and yet begin living to the limit of passion and compassion until, released by joy, we uncurl to one another and to a better world of justice and peace. For you are gracious beyond all telling of it. This day, in our beloved community, we hold in our hearts with great tenderness all who are navigating life's challenges. May our bodies, our spirits, our hearts be healed. May unity overcome division, hope vanquish despair, and joy overcome sorrow. May we gather all these concerns along with our own unspoken prayers and join our hearts together for a time of silence. Amen. Ashe, and blessed be.
Well, good morning again. It's really wonderful to be here. This is actually, I think, my first time preaching in person here at ERUF, but I live about 5 minutes away. And, I've had the joy of getting to know so many of you throughout the years in my work leading our UU Justice Ministry of North Carolina. I also want to thank you all so much for your incredible support of our state justice ministry since its founding in 2012 by an ERUFian, Doug Rhodes. I hope that the start of summer is treating you well despite all that is happening in our world. I know we are still reeling from the mass shootings in Buffalo and Uvalde and Tulsa, not to mention the devastating state of gun violence in our own city. We are awaiting the imminent ruling from the Supreme Court that will end Roe v. Wade. We are fighting attacks against our LGBTQ youth. And of course, on top of it all, facing the realities of our unjust healthcare system, our fragile democracy, our warming earth. In the last few years, we have seen that all of these things are threats to all of us, and yet, we also have to tell the truth about the fact that the stakes are not the same for each of us. Depending on our circumstances and the privileges we hold, we in many ways live in different realities right now. In our beloved city, if we cannot address the deep underlying issues that lead to gun violence, some of our neighborhoods will continue to experience the terror of constant immediate threats to our safety and security, while others will not. If Medicaid expansion does not finally happen this summer, some of us will still have health insurance. Others of us will remain left out. Same goes for housing security in the triangle where housing prices continue to skyrocket and the state minimum wage remains $7.25 an hour. That math does not work. The difference in what's at stake for us physically and mentally and economically also reveals what is spiritually at stake for us as Unitarian Universalists. In our tradition, we are anchored by our principles, a reverence for the interconnected web of all beings, a responsibility to be fair and just in our relationships, to create systems that are just. And when we exist in systems that are unjust, some refer to this as a sort of spiritual fragmentation. It's the idea that when we are not in right relationship with others in that web, we are not in right relationship with our own spirit. It's the idea that when balance and equity does not exist among parts of the whole, we are, in a sense, not whole. And that is why we say that this work is about our collective liberation. That is why, spiritually speaking, we have everything at stake in this moment. I know we are tired. Oh my gosh, we are so tired. I know that many of us are struggling with doubt right now that change is possible. Who here is struggling with doubt? I know I am. I wrestle with it every single day, right? It lives in this room right now. Like, let's just tell the truth about that. And yet, our faith calls us to meet this moment with everything we've got. And I believe that our story for all ages this morning is an apt one for this moment that reveals the necessary work ahead of us. In the story of the two villages, the adults in the lower village seem to have accepted the reality that people keep falling in the stream. And in their practical but limited thinking, they have addressed the issue in the only way that they think is possible. But the young girl, she asks, why do people keep falling in the river? Like, why is this happening? It's the girl in the conversation with the man pulled from the water who comes to understand the cause of the problem and feel a deeper sense of urgency and go upstream to powerfully meet the moment. I believe this story reflects three things that are critical to our movement work today. The first thing is imagination. The girl's ability to imagine a world where people stop falling in the water. There are so many powerful examples of the prophetic and courageous leadership of our youth in our country today. In the wake of the most recent string of mass shootings, I think of the survivors of the Parkland, Florida school shooting who refused to accept this reality. They organized the 2018 March for Our Lives, and next weekend they will lead another national March for Our Lives in Washington, D.C., and in places across our country. I hope you'll join us in Raleigh next Saturday to demand an end to this. Another great example is the Sunrise Movement, who for the last 4 years have been organizing for a Green New Deal. This is the most comprehensive plan our country has to address climate change, and it's being fueled by a movement of 20-year-olds and 16-year-olds, and no joke, 9-year-olds. They are showing us the absolutely essential role of imagination in our movement work because, as Lucille Clifton once said, we cannot create what we cannot imagine. And the Sunrise Youth, they're not just whimsically dreaming, they are wedding imagination with a sound strategy. They are students of our country's history, of suffrage, of civil rights era, of the original New Deal. And they are building a movement based on the scholarship of Harvard professor Erica Chenoweth. Her research shows that no major movement of nonviolent protest in the last 120 years globally has ever failed once it achieved the active and sustained participation of 3.5% of the population. 3.5%. That is the tipping point. And they are building a pathway to that magic number, but they need our help. Imagine this summer if 3.5% of our country were in the streets demanding an end to gun violence, demanding a bold climate change plan, demanding voting rights and health care and fair wages. Truly, can you imagine it? Of course, there are adults who are building massive movements like this, leaders in our country whose great gifts is that they dream as big as kids do. North Carolina's very own Reverend Barber, co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign, comes to mind. Right now, we are less than 2 weeks away from the Moral March on Washington, D.C. On June 18th, people from every corner of this nation will come together to call for a moral revival that is so powerful and so unified that it cannot be ignored or denied. Reverend Barber has his eye on the tipping point. I know a lot of you ruffians are going to be with us in Washington, D.C. on June 18th. If you're planning to be there, if you want to learn more, please talk to Emily Cox or myself after the service. In our faith today, our president, Susan Frederick Gray, is pushing us to interrogate the limits of our imagination for what we are capable of. In 2020, she challenged our national You the Vote campaign to reach out to 1 million people by Election Day. And you can imagine that some people were a little nervous about her putting such a big goal out there for such a small denomination like ours. Turns out they were right to question that goal, because by October, we had reached out to 3 million people. These last 3 years has been the largest activation of UUs in our denomination's history, like by a lot. And it started because we had the courage to imagine, or to put it another way, because we believed that we were capable of more, that we had just barely glimpsed the power of this faith. So yes, it begins with imagination, but we also know that the only way to actually create the change we dream of is by organizing. Organizing is the act of realizing our collective power, and that's what the girl in the story did. I mean, first she rallied the kids in the village, she got the upper village in the game, then she found a very creative way of inviting her parents to get in the game, grab a shovel. That's textbook organizing, right? And that's what we are called to do. My job leading the UU Justice Ministry of North Carolina, my work is to be in close relationship with every UU congregation, every UU in the state, and make sure that we are moving in alignment with our state partners and coalitions to build power and to achieve real wins in our state. And I'm thrilled to say that after over a decade of organizing for Medicaid expansion in our state, we believe that we are finally on the verge of a tipping point. This week, the state Senate, with strong bipartisan, nearly unanimous support, voted to pass Medicaid expansion bill that would expand coverage to over 600,000 people in our state. We have a very big uphill battle in the House. And now we have to be a part of a massive statewide coalition that gets this thing over the finish line. And I'm not just talking a coalition of healthcare groups. No, this is climate justice groups and educators and union workers and policy experts and grassroots organizations and people of faith, everybody. Everybody. Following the lead of Health Action NC and Care for Carolina, we are united and activated in this all hands on deck moment. Executing a statewide strategy, writing letters to the editor, making phone calls, sending emails with a disciplined message, targeting those most powerful legislators who are on the fence. And I know that a lot of our representative is like already down, right? So you're thinking, what can we do? We need to be on the phone to the Speaker of the House, Tim Moore, to call on him to call a vote in the House. That's our work, if we've got Alston. I know a lot of us are in a situation where we've got our rep on lockdown. And unfortunately, before we know it, we know that another broad statewide movement will again need to be organized and ready when the Supreme Court overturns Roe. Because nearly all of our neighboring states have trigger laws that will immediately ban abortions once this decision is announced. Overnight, there is going to be a flood of people, and of course there already are a flood of people, coming from all across the South into North Carolina seeking an abortion. In Durham, our county is only one of 9 counties in the state that has abortion clinics, and we will need to be a part of a massive coalition following the lead of Pro-Choice NC and the Carolina Abortion Fund to support our local clinics and those who face financial barriers to traveling here to get the care that they need. We are called to imagine. We are called to organize. And the third thing that we are called to do and that our story calls us to do today is to create. The parents in the story are constantly fighting the current, right? But their children knew that they could bring people together by inviting them into the act of building something. This is exactly what Stacey Abrams talked about in her Where lecture in our 2021 General Assembly. She said, when you're in the process of construction, when you're working towards something, your energy feels different. Your complacency dissipates, and it's replaced by this constant buzz of how do I keep it going? And what's even more important is that people want to be a part of making something new. They rarely want to be a part of the act of pure destruction. It is an abysmal space to inhabit. I'm sure we can feel this, right? This resonates. When we are constantly battling against, because the darker our enemy gets, the darker our soul gets trying to fight it. But there is light in the act of creation. There is light in the act of being for something. We cannot give our attention, we cannot deplete our energy and orientation to the darkness moving through our state and country. No. We will continue to build a movement where we are guided by love and nourished by love and sustained by love. A movement where we are creating a network of relationships and trust across our state following the lead of those who are most directly impacted, where we believe in the power of storytelling and music, where joy is an act of resistance, where gratitude is an abundant resource of movement that rejects narratives of fear and scarcity and replaces them with a message of hope and abundance. That is our work. That is what we are called to do. Our UU Justice Ministry in North Carolina is a part of that movement, creating a new day in our state. And if you aren't already involved, please join us. Please sign up for our listserv, be on the lookout for calls to action in your EREF communications, and join us on Fridays at 11 for Friday Action Hour. This Friday marked the 106th straight week that UUs from across the state have come together to take action. It's a special community. A lot of E-Ruffians are a part of it. But you know, I still struggle with doubt. Whether it be gun violence or healthcare or our democracy or Earth, every day I still wrestle with the doubt that these tipping point moments are possible. But let me end with this question. What if we have everything we need? What if the ability to transform this nation already exists within us and among us, and the only thing stopping us is faith in us? Faith that when we come together to imagine and to organize and to create, we are more powerful than we can even imagine. It is time to cast our doubts aside and realize the full, liberating power of this movement. It's time to believe in the tipping point. May it be so. Amen. Thank you. Thank you so much. And now let's take action with this morning's offering. If you're at home, you can make a contribution to ERUF's shared ministry at eruf.org/give. Now may our offering be generously given and gratefully received.
Change the world, just wanna bring a smile to every boy and every girl. Can't do it by myself, on my own and all alone. The world needs changing now, so let's all get in the zone. Every woman, every man, come and join me, lend a hand. It's time to step it up and lead our children to the promised land. The golden age of unity, of freedom and equality. Peace on earth is possible, just need a new mentality. Open up your heart and open up your mind. Open up your spirit and guess what you will find. Instead of us versus them, always focused on the enemy, you'll see that your enemy is just like you and me. The world is one country and mankind is citizens. Time to come together, y'all, all 7 billion. Turn war into peace, turn hate into love. Turn your frown into a smile, go give somebody a hug.
I can, you can.
We can change the world.
I can, you can.
We can change the world.
I can, you can.
We can change the world.
I can, you can.
We can change the world.
Open up your hearts and mind and face reality. 'Cause there is some good within you, called peace and harmony.
Look inside yourself.
So see me as your brother.
See me as your brother.
Or your sister. I'll move your mountain and you move my mountain. 'Cause a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step.
Yeah.
Africa says one hand can tie a boat. Let's unite and see the world change from good to best. And put a smile on the face of my kindness. We say, I can and you can.
We can change the world. We can change the world.
I can, you can.
We can change the world. So do unto others as you have done to you. 'Cause change in the world starts with the golden rule. We gotta celebrate diversity and show love universally. 'Cause everyone on earth is part of one community. Black, white, red, tan, rich, poor, woman, man, atheist, Christian, Muslim, Jew, Baha'i, Buddhist, Sikh, or Hindu. What if you were judged for the language that you spoke? What kind of feelings do you think it would evoke to people down because of your race or face religious persecution? Time to rid the world of prejudice and start a revolution, talking no more hunger and no more pain, no more violence and no more slaves, no more hatred and no more more greed, no more homeless or broken families, no more pollution, no more disease, no more corruption, no more poverty, no more discrimination. Kids need an education, gotta give hope to the up and coming generation. Look towards the future and forget about our sins. Take a moment to reflect, cause the power is within. Sing it, Awu.
I can, you can.
We can change the world.
I can, you can.
We can change the world.
I can, you can.
We can change the world.
I can, you can.
We can change the world.
Every black man and every white man, we are connected as one.
One people, y'all.
Yeah. So take my hand.
Everybody now.
I'll take your hand.
Come together,
then
y'all.
the dream will come true.
Yeah.
We can all make a change.
Make a change.
One people, one world. Yeah-la-la, 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 yeah-la-la. Ooh-hoo. Yeah. Yeah-la-la, 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 yeah-la-la. That's all we say. I can and you can.
We can change the world.
I can, you can.
We can change the world.
I can, you can.
We can change the world.
I can, you can.
We can change the world.
Yeah-la-la, 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 yeah-la-la. Ooh-hoo. Yeah. Yeah-la-la, 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 yeah.
This song goes out to every single member of the human race. Each action you take has an impact on the rest of humanity. So make your life about something positive and do some good to make a change. The world needs you.
Thank you for your generosity this morning for the life of this congregation. And now please rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 121, We'll Build a Land.
We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. Oh, we'll build a promised land that can be. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land where we bring the good tidings to all the afflicted and all those who mourn, and we'll give them garlands instead of ashes. Oh, we'll build a land where peace is born. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll be a land building up ancient cities, rising up devastations from old, restoring ruins of generations. Oh, we'll build a land of people so bold. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, once faint and once weak, where like oaks of righteousness stand her people. Come beyond the land, my people we seek. Come beyond the land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then grace peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
When we gather together at the table overflows with all of our stories, our gifts, our hopes, our faith, and we glimpse what is possible. In this moment of heartbreak and fear and doubt, may we give ourselves to this sacred unfolding recipe and believe in our power, our essential contributions. And when we do, our faith will be deepened and our spirits transformed, and we will be a part of a liberating movement beyond our wildest imagination. May it be so. Amen.